Welcome back to Legalese 123, where we are covering cases across America. Hello, and welcome to Legalese 123. I am your host, Missy K. I hope you are doing well on this Wednesday. I want it to be Thursday for some reason. Wednesday, the 17th of June. Hello. I'm a little bit late. Why? I realized that this court doesn't start on time. When she tells the jurors to be there, she's telling them to be there almost an hour before the court starts. Why? I don't know. Is it because maybe she knows that sometimes jurors don't always arrive when they're supposed to arrive? Does she just like people to be sitting in her courtroom just waiting on her? I don't know. But she doesn't start on the time she starts. So if you're wondering, hey, did I miss anything? The answer is no. You didn't miss the thing. There's no court is not in session right now. They're just sitting there. They're working, but they're sitting there. They're not doing anything. If you don't believe me, here, look. This is live. So you didn't miss anything. Court hasn't started yet. We were panicking. Where is she? Don't worry. I got you. And even if I started late, we would then have some Zoom room, so we don't have to put up with the court's nonsense. But here we are. Hi, everybody. I am Missy K. I hope you're doing well on this Thursday. So what do we have going on? If you guys know me, we're going to take a side quest. Hang on. If you guys know me, I have been checking on these birdies in. Oh my goodness. Look, you guys are going to believe this. Okay, hang on. Don't worry about it. We'll see the court. Don't worry. We'll get there in the court time. Okay. If you guys know me, you guys know that I've been following these birds at Big Bear Lake, Sandy and Luna, and I have an announcement. To make. Oh my goodness, now my whole screen and everything just went, oh, hang on. Okay. Here we go. If you know and you have followed me, you know that I follow these two birds at Big Bear Lake. They're a eagle pair, Jackie and Shadow. And Jackie and Shadow had two babies this year. Oh, never mind. Court's courting. Hold on. I'll tell you later. The judge just came in, so don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. All right, my birds, Jackie and Shadow, they had two babies this year, and they found out the sex of the babies. There's a boy and a girl. And remember how I said, how do you know? Well, they were side by side. One is a slightly larger than the other, and so therefore the one that's larger is the girl. The one that's smaller is the boy. So this year, Jackie and Shadow have a boy and a girl. Last year, they had two girls. So that's exciting. And you see them jumping around, and it's possible that they're getting ready to leave the nest. So if you can see, court is just starting. The judge is on the bench, but the jury is not in. They're still waiting to get things together. So if you think that, oh no, it didn't happen, it didn't happen yet. Court has not happened yet. So what do we have going on today? The defense is still their turn. They stated they have two witnesses today. One was a doctor. The other one is somebody who's going to potentially either be via Zoom, or he is going to be in the courtroom later on today. And then the prosecution has rebuttal witnesses, if they have rebuttal witnesses. And then that's it for today. Then tomorrow is supposed to be a charging conference, which means that the lawyers get up and they argue what they want to be read to the jury when it comes time for them to jury instructions, charging conference, talk about the language of things, and they get all that together. And then, they get all that together. Then on Monday is closing arguments. The judge said that was going to take all day. I don't know about you, but really? Really? All day for closing arguments? That's very generous of that judge to give them all day for closing arguments. I don't know about you, but I don't want to be lectured for 4 hours by one person. Oops, I apologize. I don't have the sound turned up. One moment. The jury's not in yet. We haven't started court. Okay, I can hear gosh darn thing. I'm afraid that the well, we don't want to hear that. Let me switch to my other headphones that are much better. The jury's not in just yet. They wanted to address something. It's not a big deal. Court hasn't really started, so we're still okay. I have 2 sets of headphones. One are ones that just go into my ear, and I have these guys. And these guys, it blocks out all the other noises, and I can really, really hear. Okay, so while the court is courting, I'm going to show you my birdies. I know. Do you really want to see the birdies? Yes, we want to see the birdies. All right, here we go. Here's my birdies. Sandy and Luna, the 2 birds at Big Bear Lake. Don't worry about it. The court isn't in session just yet. I'll get back to it. I got it. So they have determined that the birdies are a boy and a girl. And as you see, they're getting so big and they're getting ready to leave the nest. It's so sad. But Jackie and Shadow have done their duty as mom and dad, have raised them to be. See, she's jumping around, or he's jumping around. I don't know which is which until they're next to each other. The boy is a little bit smaller than the girl. So I just wanted to give you a smidge update to let you know that our birdies are doing really well and they're getting ready to go off and live their lives. So when they get ready for their flights, I'll let you know. I'll post it on all of my spaces. They haven't left the nest yet, but boy, they are getting ready. They're hopping around. They're spreading their wings. They're getting ready to take flight. It's kind of sad, but this is what they do. This is life. This is the circle of life, right? The court has not court yet, meaning the court we're still on the we who labor here seek only the truth, which when it comes time for them to bring in the jury, why doesn't the cameraman pan to that area? Why are we still focused on the jurors? Drives me nuts. If I was a juror, I don't want you to see my feet. I don't want you to see what bag I brought in. Some of the bags are cute, but we don't want to see that. All right, if you're just joining in, court isn't courting just yet. We are waiting for court to come into session. They're talking about something via sidebar. And so I thought, let's bring something positive in today. So today we are looking at our Big Bear Valley birdies. We're checking in on Sandy and Luna. We discovered yesterday that one is a boy, one is a girl, and they are getting ready to leave the nest. I will keep you updated when and if they leave. All right, you're not here for birding. Bye-bye, birdies. But I wanted to give you an update, give you something to feel good about today. All right, as you see, court isn't doing anything, so you're not missing anything. It's live. Nothing's really going on. See, nothing's going on. You're not missing anything. Don't have a fear of missing out. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, somebody had asked me, hey, why are they only really talking about Lucy in this case? Why aren't they talking about the injuries for the other girls? He is not being charged with injuring other passengers. Does that make sense? He's being charged with homicide, manslaughter. Someone died. Who is that person that died? It was Lucy Fernandez. So the focus has to be on Lucy. They do have some smatterings, as you have seen throughout testimony, of the other girls and their injuries. As we know, or if you don't know, and I'm going to make a reel of who's who and what's what to the best of my ability. Oh my goodness. Someone has done something with the microphone and it's terrible. It's called like a potato microphone, they call it, where the sound is just terrible. So hopefully they fix it, because right now it sounds like electricity in my ear. You can hear it too. I know you can hear that vibrating noise.
Yesterday, Judge, I went over with the defense. In states 26, you may recall that is. Yes. Hi, good morning.
Hi there, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Just wanted to follow up on something with you.
Yes, ma'am.
You had sent me some information this morning, which I reviewed from your employer. And I'm not going to go into details here, but I wanted to let you know that I'm going to follow up on this matter. And hopefully relieve any of your concerns and have that conversation. Sometimes they don't really know of or understand their obligations by law. When someone is.
Is this a juror?
You're doing your job here. So, but I want to make sure that that brings you a level of ease and comfort that it's not going to distract you from the work that you need to do. So I haven't done that yet. But I will when I take a break.
Okay.
Make that phone call and follow up.
It is.
Thank you very much.
Are you okay to continue?
Yes, ma'am, of course.
Holy crap. No way. Oh my goodness gracious. That's a juror. That is a juror that the cameraman just went and showed. I'm not kidding you. That's a juror.
Sir, is your microphone on?
It is.
Maybe my hearing aid isn't. Having trouble hearing.
Judge,
Turn it up.
No, it's fine.
just regarding the matter with the juror, just so the record will be clear, that was juror number 4, Mr. Augustine Thomas Lucas.
Yes.
Oh, great. Just tell us who the juror was.
Yes, Judge. I was looking with the defense at States 26. This was the exhibit that had the body-worn camera video from Officer Delgado. You may recall that the first clip on the flash drive was titled Arrival and Triage, and it's labeled number 1. Ms. Adams, when she published it to the jury, pursuant to the court's ruling, we did not publish that full clip. We had stopped it at a certain mark that the court had asked us to stop it at. So what I went ahead and did is I removed the extra portion of that clip. It's been redacted. I showed it to the defense. So what I'd like to do with the court's permission and the defense's agreement is substitute the redacted clip, add that to the flash drive, and then remove the full clip that was not published for the jury.
All right, defense?
Well, just to be clear, Judge, we had objected to all of the testimony, but pursuant to the court's ruling and what was played in front of the jury, we agreed to what Mr. Bohr showed us.
Absolutely,
That
your
was correct.
objection is preserved,
Yes,
however,
that it didn't meet
based
that.
upon the ruling and the excise portion that you were required to.
Oh boy. Oh boy, what happened? Okay, I don't know what happened, so I went to a different feed. Hold on. Did they cut the feed? Oh.
Ms. Adams, when she published it to the jury,
They cut the feed. Oh no. Oh boy, hold on just a moment. They cut the feed. They cut the feed. So Court TV was it had the pool camera. Okay, hold on just a second. Court TV had the pool camera. I wonder if they got it pulled because they just showed a juror. Oh, we might not have court today. We might not have court today. Hold on. Okay. Hold on. This is, I think this is from yesterday. Nope, this is, hold on. Hold on. One second. Okay. Hold on just a second. I want to make sure I'm in the right spot. We'll get it. Don't worry. And if we have time and we need to zoom, then we'll zoom. Okay, Court TV's feed is a little bit better. All right. I apologize. They messed up. So we're going to go ahead and start here. All right, here we go.
Going through his phone for photographs.
I brought that up yesterday.
And those photographs were just used for demonstrative purposes to the jury. There was no issue with regard to admissibility or admission of those photos. I just wanted to clarify what transpired for the record.
I said that yesterday. All right, I have to stop. I have to pause. So remember, when you have a piece of evidence or you have something that's going to come into trial, typically both sides know what it is. I have this pen. You see this pen? You like this pen? Okay, we're going to bring this into evidence. You don't just automatically, okay, I got this. You don't just automatically like, okay, now here's something new into court. Whammo shablammo, look here. And then you show it to the jury. Here you go. That's what they did with this phone. You can't do that. You have to present it into evidence. There's no, I was like, what? What? We're doing this? Okay. So now they're talking about it. Blows my mind.
Your Honor, when witness David Rodriguez was on the stand, he was asked by the defense if he had a video, and that video was published. It was only about 6 seconds long. And then the defense asked him if he could look on his iPhone to see the what they call, I guess, the metadata, which would give the date and the time that was recovered. And as he was scrolling through his phone, he made reference to a photograph that he had also taken.
Okay.
And so I have not ever seen that photograph. I'd seen the video. So on cross, I asked him if he still had that photograph on his phone. I couldn't exactly introduce his phone into
No, I
evidence.
understand.
But that's why
I don't have any issues with that. I just want to be clear that was just shown to the jury where the photo was for demonstrative purposes throughout your cross-examination of the witness.
And that's true, but it was also with an intent that when we took the break, I would make contact with the witness and ask him to text me that photograph because I could potentially authenticate it through other witnesses. He indicated that he would do so and then has ghosted me since. And I advised him that he's still under subpoena and that if he does not respond, he could potentially face contempt proceedings.
Well, there you go. He ghosted her, so don't feel bad about being ghosted by people.
So I may be asking the court's assistance with reaching out to him. It's not make or break for my case, but I do think it is, curious.
Okay, all right. Then you get what you get, right? You get what you get and you don't get upset. You're the one that said, hey, let me see your phone. And you're the one that introduced it into evidence. So you're the one that didn't get what you needed before he left. Now, mind you, they'll get it. But I'm not blaming her. She the spur of the moment, she did what she did, but there are consequences.
That he assured me he'd send it to me, and I know he's received my text messages, so.
I ghosted her. That's hilarious. So listen, I wonder if they took the feed down because they had the juror. They showed. Does the judge know that they showed the juror? Did they take the feed down because they showed the juror and then now they have to like clip that out? It's out there. It's out there. It's like once you ring that bell, it's out there. You can't unring that bell. Okay, we have a little bit of zoom room. Oops, no, that's not what I want. I'm sorry about the microphone. Whoever's working the camera feed is doing a terrible job today.
Mistake. But I think that there is a reason for supplementing the record with what this item was, just so the court will.
So we have to do the record.
Correct.
Yes, that is.
We'll address it at the next break.
No problem.
Okay, that'll be fine.
By the way, defense, that was your witness. You need to get this picture. It doesn't do any harm to you, but you need to get it. So it's gotta go in. The record needs to be clear. For your client's sake, right? For your client's sake. If your client gets convicted, he needs to have a clear record for his appeal. So work together, work nicely together, and get it done. All right, we have a little bit of zoom room. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know why this microphone stinks. We're going to catch up. Here's the jurors coming in. Guess what? You're going to look for that juror whose feet he had these green sneakers. There he is. There's the juror that had a problem. And we know his name. We know his name. That's so sad.
Ladies and gentlemen.
There was a time where somebody had done that, and the judge asked streamers like YouTubers like me to go through your stream and edit that out. And they had a court order to edit it out.
How are you all doing today?
If there is, then I'll do it. I mean, I probably should anyways, but I'm live.
Investigation?
I'm live, so there's not much I could do.
In the news. Read anything? Newspapers. Very well. Thank you. We're ready to proceed.
Because once I'm done and this is posted, then I'd have to delete it off of my YouTube and edit it out. Oh, so doctor is up. All right, this is defense witness number. Oh dear. Number 7. Oh my goodness. Fix that microphone.
Good morning. State your name, please, for the record, and spell your last name.
Oh my gosh.
Diana Barrett, Barratt.
You are a medical doctor, is that correct?
Yes,
In what field of specialty?
neurology.
Can you tell us a little bit about your education leading up to?
Okay, I think this is a doctor that's going to testify to George Pino's injuries, or where he is or where he was after the accident.
A medical doctor.
Yes, I went to University of Florida and I studied engineering, and then I went right from my bachelor's degree to medical school, also at University of Florida. And then I took a 1-year leave and I obtained a master's degree from Harvard School of Public Health. Went back and finished medical school in 1996
Back at the University of Florida.
at the University of Florida, yes.
Anything before that relevant to your medical education?
Relevant to medical education? I went to Broward Community College for a year.
What about postgraduate?
Postgraduate, I did a year of general surgery at Charity Hospital in New Orleans. And then I did research for 2 years. And then I started my neurology training, which requires 1 year of internal medicine and then 3 years of neurology. And that was all done in New Orleans.
Which specific institution in New Orleans?
So at that time, it was 2 separate matching programs. So I did my first year at Tulane University and some of the same hospitals. And then my neurology training at LSU. So 1 year at Tulane for internal medicine and then 3 years at LSU in New Orleans.
Can you tell us about your experience, beginning with the most recent?
With the most recent, I recently went into practice for myself, and I've been in my own office a little more than 2 years.
Oh, you can't hear me. It's Court TV is it's Court TV. And they have the pool cam. So maybe they're trying to fix the microphone issue. It's just background information for the doctor. It's no big deal. No big deal. No big deal, right? No big deal.
It's because they all had
Here
to
we
take
go.
my class. Both of them are
Microphone
required
is still
courses.
terrible.
Did you ever engage with the Care Resource Clinic?
Yes, I worked while I was at Florida International University. They didn't have a neurology clinic, so I did do work at Care Resource, which cares for patients with HIV and LGBTQ patients. And I also worked for a time at Camillus Health, which is connected to the homeless shelter, Camillus House.
So Camilla's House is, can you tell us about the way compensation coming from Camilla's House?
I mean, they paid me a nominal amount of money to see patients there.
At some point, you took maternity leave, is that right?
Yes,
So break it in.
yeah, in 2008, I believe. I mean, I still had to keep working for a while after she was born, and then at some point I took a leave.
Prior to taking maternity leave, did you work with the neuroscience consultants at Baptist Health in South Florida?
Yes, I was at Baptist Maine in Kendall for 3 years, mostly in the hospital every day,
That was beginning in 2005.
beginning in 2005, yes.
You were a staff neurologist there, is that correct?
Yeah, I was a neurologist. I did emergency room, a lot of emergency room inpatient, and some outpatient as well.
Wow. Working at Baptist South Florida,
Yes, throughout my career, I've been in contact with patients with traumatic brain injury. And where I trained was a level 1 trauma center, and then the Lee Health System was a level 2 trauma center. So there were a lot of brain injuries. A level 1 is just a higher level, and penetrating trauma, gunshot wounds would go there, severe car accidents. But some regions don't have an easily accessible level 1 trauma center. So
The Baptist did have, does have.
I don't believe Baptist had one at the time. I'm not sure if they do now.
Louisiana State University had some work experience there.
Yeah, after residency, I stayed on faculty for a time, but then Hurricane Katrina hit, and I decided to come back to South Florida.
We have no hurricanes.
Right, well, you're better prepared.
Doctor, I see in your curriculum vitae that you've received some awards in your career. Can you tell us a little bit about any of those?
So I received through the American Board of Psychiatry and Neurology an award to conduct education research. And the goal was to train students and residents to discuss medical errors. So if a complication happened, they would go into a simulation, they would interact with a standardized patient or patients and, apologize for making the error and try to, disclose the error in a compassionate way. That was one of the projects.
Any other projects that you can think of for which you received awards?
I did get another award from the American Academy of Neurology to do research on simulations that I developed for training medical students.
Simulations with regard to treating patients, I presume?
Yes, And then there were other teaching awards. I got an innovation award as a clerkship director, teaching award from the American Academy of Neurology, teaching award for clerkship director, A.B. Baker teaching award through the American Academy of Neurology.
In addition to your private practice, do you continue to some degree in a teaching capacity?
I do. I've lectured at Florida Atlantic University for the residency program. I can't remember when. It might have been like over a year ago. And then I've given lectures at Nova. There's an allopathic medical school there now. I've given sleep lectures with them.
you tell the jury about any committee publications?
Um,
And explain what that
Well,
means, actually, committee
for-
publication.
Okay, so I was on a committee called, excuse me, the Neurology Milestones Committee, and we looked at the framework for assessing competency in neurology residents. And then we just looked at the data that had been accumulated over the last couple of years, and we revised it. And so every resident in neurology would be evaluated by their program based on the parameters that we established.
Is that still, are students still getting the benefit of that?
Well, they're residents, right?
That's continuing.
Yeah, they're evaluated. I don't know if they find it beneficial, but they're evaluated by it every so often.
See a publication here from September of 2015 titled Increased Intracranial Pressure Team-Based Learning Module. Tell the jury about that. Is that-
Yeah, I developed that because we couldn't find a good resource for second-year medical students. The terminology is all new to them, and they don't have any clinical experience. So I had a team, and we wrote a publication. We wrote and published some course materials, and it's just an overview of head trauma and increased intracranial pressures. So it included things that they get tested on for their boards: epidural hematoma, subdural hematoma, subarachnoid hemorrhage, and then the initial information about how to treat those conditions.
Could you be a little bit better explanation of what subarachnoid, so I can say, the hematomas that you were talking about, subarachnoid hematoma, and some other of these items that you mentioned?
Yeah, so an epidural hematoma could occur when someone hits their head really hard and they have a skull fracture, and then some blood forms right under the skull. A subdural hematoma is when a vein bleeds as opposed to an arterial bleed from an epidural hematoma. And then a subarachnoid, it occurs when an aneurysm ruptures.
What about memberships and activities in professional societies that you've been involved with?
So I've been a member of the American Academy of Neurology probably for 20 years. I am a reviewer for some of their journals.
And you are a board certified neurologist, is that
Yes.
right? And for how long have you been a board certified neurologist?
I finished in 2003. Well, at that time, we had to take a series of exams. Probably 2005 by the time I did my written and my oral boards. Probably 2005, I'm guessing.
And continuing through current times,
Yes.
right? What about editorial activities? Have you participated in writing any professional publications?
Yeah, so for editorial activities, I'm a peer reviewer for the American Academy of Neurology. They usually ask me to review abstracts that will be presented for the annual meeting. I review articles for some of their journals. Whenever it comes up, they make a request. And then, did you ask about something other than editorial activities?
Any if you participated in writing chapters of books or papers?
I have written book chapters on hyperbaric medicine. It's not really relevant to what we're discussing now.
I did not cover all of the activities, awards, and other professional associations with you here today, have I?
No, not all that. I mean, I'm a question writer for the neurology board exam.
Is there anything else that you would like to include that I may have missed or overlooked on your detail?
Just inform the question, Your Honor.
Right. I said the same thing.
Let's talk about your personal practice right now. You mentioned that you've been in private practice for 2 years. Is that right?
Yes.
Can you let the jury know a little bit about the nature of your practice currently?
So I don't take any insurance, and so on my website it says concierge neurology and sleep medicine physician.
Private
It's,
doctor.
it's actually direct pay because the patients just pay me at the time they see me, and then I can give them a super bill. They can get reimbursed later for, if, they can send it to their insurance and try to get reimbursed for my fees. And I see a wide range of neurology and sleep medicine patients. My youngest patient's probably 18, my oldest is in his 90s.
With regard to the term concierge, is the term concierge commonly used in the private practice of medical for the same purposes that you use?
Well, it usually means that there's a membership and patients pay per month. I had initially on my website direct pay, and nobody knew what that was. Everybody was asking me, what does that mean? And so I just changed to
This
concierge.
is relevant.
So the
This
term
is relevant.
concierge really focuses on how you receive payment from patients.
Objection leading.
Objection, relevance.
Could you just clarify, if any further clarification needs to be made, what the term concierge connotes?
So the reason that I changed it from direct pay is that people would call me all day long saying, do you take my insurance? So I just wanted to make it clear that I'm not on any insurance plans. And then, I got fewer calls asking if I take their insurance.
Relevance. Who cares? Get into it.
Dr. Bear, what is the difference between a consulting physician and a treating physician?
Okay, so if we're talking about legal matters?
Yes.
Okay. So a treating physician is responsible for the patient, and they are responsible for their well-being. They have to make appropriate recommendations, offer treatment, prescribe medications, recommend studies or consultations that might be needed, and take a global look at the patient. For a consultant hired as an expert witness, you're given a number of questions, maybe one question or a few questions that you need to answer, and you are not responsible for the patient. You don't necessarily give them any medical advice, and you don't treat the patient. You don't establish a patient-doctor relationship.
Have you acquired, other than being hired as a consultant in this case, let me ask you, have you been hired as a consultant to testify in this case?
Yes, I've been hired as an expert witness in this case.
Other than your consultant work in this case, doctor, have you ever been hired to be a consultant in any other legal case?
Yes, I've been consulted in other cases as an expert witness for brain injury cases or other types of neurological injuries.
Have you ever testified as an expert witness in a criminal case like this?
Judge objection. Unless you're pretrial.
I'm not sure about that. Why can't she answer that? And I didn't hear what the objection was. So, because the microphone is terrible, and then I didn't hear what the judge had to say because I can't hear her. I don't know why. And just remember, we don't have any Zoom room. We're live, so there's nothing I can do. Why can't she answer if she's testified in other courts? I don't understand. All right, so we have the Dr. Barrett is on the stand. She has not treated Mr. Pino. She probably has looked at his medical records and is going to form some sort of opinion based upon that as to his neurological disposition, how he is since the accident, or perhaps during the accident. After the accident happened, what were the injuries that Mr. Pino suffered that could potentially hinder his ability to make a truthful statement to the police, right? Is that where they're going with this? That's what I think that they're going with this. I don't want to say necessarily that he didn't make a truthful statement to the police. I think perhaps at some point he was in shock, disbelief. He had been in a boat crash. As you know, most of the people on the right side of the boat were injured severely. Lucy was directly right in front of him on the boat, and then next to her was Katie.
Dr. Barrett, have you testified as an expert witness in other legal matters?
Yes,
Were those civil matters, criminal matters, or strictly?
civil.
And when testifying as an expert in civil matters, have you testified both as on the plaintiff side and on the defense side?
I don't remember how much I testified, but I've been hired as by the plaintiff side and by the defendant side. How many of those went to deposition or trial, I don't recall offhand.
Do you recall when it was that you were retained to be consulted in this case?
Yes, so to determine if Mr. Pino had a traumatic brain injury and to determine if it could cause amnesia and to determine if that could result in confabulation. Did you want me to define that term right now?
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a few
Okay.
minutes. But,
And to determine if confabulation were present, what would the possible duration of that be?
and when was it that you were retained?
I believe it was October of last year.
And that was my firm retained you, is that
Yes.
right? You mentioned confabulation a few moments ago and traumatic brain injury. Can you explain to the jury what a concussion is?
Okay, so I should first go into the terminology because we use them interchangeably. So concussion. Can you hear me? Okay.
I can hear.
Okay. Concussion and TBI and traumatic brain injury, they're all terms that are used interchangeably. And so how that happens is there's an external force that causes the brain to shake back and forth inside the head. There could be an acceleration, deceleration injury. There could even be a rotational component to that, and it causes a large number of signs and symptoms.
Is there a method by which whether a traumatic brain injury has occurred is evaluated by physicians such as yourself? In other words, is there some criteria that is followed?
Yes, so the American Congress of Rehabilitation Medicine published a very nice, very clear, concise diagnostic criteria that most of us use to establish whether or not someone had a traumatic brain injury.
Is this a criteria that you have previously used prior to this case?
Yes.
Your Honor, if I could have Dr. Barrett step down, I've shared with the prosecutors in this case a demonstrative exhibit that we would like to share with the jury.
Yes, sir, I have, thank you.
Yeah, we can mark those.
I like her purple laser. Very colorful. But the wealth word of the day is confabulation. See, we're learning something. I don't know what that word means just yet. She's going to tell us. I have no Zoom room, so we just have to sit here and wait. We're live. Welcome, everybody. Make sure to do the likey and the subscribey things and the sharey things. Push the content out. Thank
For the
you.
record, this is defense exhibit A37 for identification.
Thanks for joining me. If you don't know who I am, my name is Missy K. I like to bring you law cases and we can cuss and discuss, except for we can't discuss the judge made a ruling that you're unable to do chat in this case. I'm trying to conform to the law because I don't want the pool camera to be pulled. I know other streamers are doing it, just FYI. Oh, look, a lovely diagram that we can't read unless they zoom in on it.
Carlos, there's a mirror.
There you go.
Okay, so it's a little bit, right?
Now, we need you to give this up if you will, please.
Okay, I'll try. So, as I mentioned, these are the diagnostic criteria from the American Congress of Rehabilitation Medicine. And there are a number of ways that you can confirm the diagnosis of traumatic brain injury. They gave us a few different pathways, so you could have just clinical signs, and that would be something that is observed at the scene of the injury. And then there's another pathway, maybe they weren't witness or maybe they didn't have any clinical signs that are available. They can have acute symptoms. So symptoms would be what the patient reports. So I have a headache, or I feel nauseated, or I feel dizzy. And if they only had acute symptoms without those signs, it has to be paired with clinical examination findings.
So say acute symptoms, what do you mean by that?
Things that happen right away, more immediate symptoms, and it would be within 72 hours. Something might be after 72 hours. It might not be from the traumatic brain injury. These criteria are one.
So these are symptoms that you're looking for within the first 72 hours of a traumatic event.
Yes.
And trauma, is that right?
Yes. And then, if they don't have the clinical sign, because they only need one clinical sign, and if they don't have the symptoms plus the clinical examination findings, if there's a neuroimaging abnormality, so the CAT scan showed in the brain, or if the MRI showed damage to the brain that looks like it, then they would qualify as a traumatic brain injury. And then I'll go into this more later, but criterion 6 is that's not accounted for by other factors, so maybe something was found unconscious and you don't know if they're not. Anything like this, or heart attack on the floor, so they are unconscious, but you don't know.
Let me direct you to right back up at the top, the criteria 1 box, mechanism of injury, in parentheses, plausible. What is being referred to as mechanism of injury? What is meant by that?
Okay, so separate slide on that. So in traumatic brain injury, there's a transfer of mechanical energy to the brain. And these criteria, there's examples of that. So
I'm going to remove me.
an object that has stress, an object. There could be maybe a flash injury where the person undergoes an acceleration and deceleration event, and the brain is shaking around inside the skull, but there's no contact with usually the head and the other surface.
Is that like a whiplash situation?
Like a whiplash, yes.
So, for example, if someone is in a car with the seatbelt on, there should be a head-on collision. The person's head may not be in contact with any object, but just the forward acceleration because of the forward momentum of the vehicle. Is that right?
Objection to leading, Your Honor.
Apologize.
Okay, so yes, in a whiplash injury, in a restraint passenger, there could be an acceleration, deceleration injury. You don't know how many times the person's going to switch back and forth inside the skull, but just the contact inside the skull would cause traumatic brain injury.
How is the brain injured by making contact with the skull?
So you could directly damage the nerve cells, and then there are projections called axons. All the nerve cells are sending axons to other places in the brain to connect with other cells, or even to parts of the body to control your muscles. And those axons can be stretched, and that can cause immediate dysfunction, or they can actually be cut and sheared.
So under normal circumstances, is the brain not in contact with the skull at any time?
So it's not banging into the skull. I mean, with younger babies, their brains are so big, they build their skulls. And as we get older, unfortunately, it is a little bit smaller every year. And so at some point, there is space, increasing space between the person's brain and the skull. And that can make you more vulnerable because of more movement and the brains. Okay. And so the American Congress of Rehabilitation Medicine has also given us another way that the mechanism usually occurs what lasting before explosion, where maybe any part is dead, but there's still acceleration of acceleration inside the skull. Okay. So if you have a plausible mechanism eventually, like if you have a plausible mechanism injury, so there is a motor vehicle accident, a fall, head trauma, then you go down this first arm, and you only need one clinical sign, and those clinical signs can be weakness, loss of consciousness, immediately after the injury, alteration of mental status, and talk about that in a minute. There could be complete or partial amnesia. And there's another category of motor inflammation.
Can you explain to us what, when you use the term amnesia, can you explain what that means more precisely?
Why are we focused on the family? Cameraman, go back.
It's not always like this in the news where they forget their name or they forget who they are or important parts of their lives. They can forget things that happen immediately preceding the injury and then things immediately after the injury. And sometimes they have trouble retrieving the memory. And so retrograde amnesia would mean they can't remember what happened right before the injury. And that could be because they were recording all the events, you're paying attention to all the events, and then suddenly head injury, you haven't had time to store those events in the memory. Right after the injury, your brain is damaged, and so you could have trouble storing memory, and you could also have trouble retrieving old memories.
What is the opposite of retrograde amnesia?
So there's retrograde amnesia, which means you forgot what happened right before the accident. And then I use the term anterograde because you can't form new memories right after the accident. And then in this document they use post-traumatic amnesia. And it's synonymous with it. I'll just look back at the slide. So loss of consciousness is pretty straightforward. So you see somebody unconscious and unresponsive. Alteration of mental status. So alteration of mental status, we define it as someone who has reduced responsiveness, or maybe they're responding, but it's not appropriate to the stimuli. They're slow to respond, or could be agitated. And then if you give them a two-part command, pick up your right hand and use it to touch your left ear, they can't put it together, they can't follow two-step commands. Or they could just be disoriented for a certain place and time. And then we went over the amnesia.
I'll give you back one moment, 2 slides. The reduced responsiveness. Tell us, expound on that a little bit more. So, for example, hypothetically, if someone is given a command, single command, example, move, get out, look here, look there. The failure to respond, the person who's listening to that, who has suffered a concussion, what would that be indicative of?
So that's one of the clinical signs that defines the diagnosis of traumatic brain injury. And you only need one of these of that list. So you only need one to determine that someone meets diagnostic criteria for traumatic brain injury. So either loss of consciousness or alteration of mental status or amnesia or this other category, seizure or trauma.
So any one of those 4 items that is part of the criteria establishing traumatic brain injury, is that what you're saying?
Yes, you only need one of those. You need the mechanism of the injury and you need one of these signs. And then as long as there's not some other factor like this person had a seizure and that's what they were wanting to determine for. As long as you don't have one of those that you can be diagnosed with traumatic brain injury or concussion. Okay, so we kind of went over this already. If there's not another reason that the person was unconscious, then we need the diagnostic criteria.
In conclusion, if we follow her diagnosis, and I'll put it up
Dr.
on
Bear, you gave an
my,
explanation
hang on.
with regard to amnesia, both
I'm so sorry. I cannot control the noise from the court TV. I can't change the audio. I believe basically what they're getting to is that George Pino had a traumatic brain injury. I will screen grab these and put them on my Facebook page later on if you want to sort of follow through and see how she came up with her diagnosis. It's quite interesting if you're into that stuff. I know you are, little nerds. If not, no worries. You'll just go past it. Hopefully, now that she's back on the stand, they'll get a little bit more into exactly how she determined his diagnosis. But I'd also like to believe that he has some other diagnosis from some other doctors and she's reviewing those. We'll see. She has to have something to go on.
retrograde amnesia and anterograde amnesia. You mentioned the word confabulation. What is that exactly?
So
Here we-
confabulation, it's something that we teach in medical schools, mainly pertaining to certain types of dementia. So the person is really struggling with their memory and they create a false memory. They have no intention of trying to deceive anybody, but they're
All right. I know you know, and I know you know where I'm going with this. If you watch the Karen Reed case, don't call her Deaver, call her Dever. Had a false memory. Does she have amnesia? Sorry, I had to.
the person is really struggling with their memory and they create a false memory. They have no intention of trying to deceive anybody, but they're confused and they come up with something that's not correct.
Other than confabulation being a sign of dementia, is there any other association that confabulation might have with amnesia?
Well, so what I didn't say is that it usually we teach it in the context of a type of dementia called Wernicke-Korsakoff, but it's also in the literature pertaining to patients with Alzheimer's and other types of dementia, and it's also occurring in patients with traumatic brain injury. And so they are not collecting a lot of data on confabulation in
When you say
general.
they, who are you referring to?
Like people that are doing clinical trials and developing frameworks such as this there isn't really data for them to look at in terms of confabulation, but the confabulation would be a byproduct or a result of amnesia because the individual's really struggling with their memory and then they generate a false memory.
Is there a connection between a concussion, traumatic brain injury, and confabulation?
Yeah, and that connection would be that they're struggling with their memory. They may have amnesia, they're having cognitive issues, and they say something that's just not correct.
When a person who is experiencing confabulation says something that is not correct, is the person being intentionally incorrect in what they're saying?
No, that's the definition of it, that they're filling in the gaps with a false memory without the intention of deceiving anybody.
And when you say
All right, I have to pause there for just a second. Are they trying to say that he made up this boat in the wake thing and that never happened? And so now they're trying to sort of discredit that? Anybody? Anybody? Anybody on the same page with me with that? That's where I think they're going with this. Hopefully they'll connect the dots for us. Because if you're a juror, we're at the at-home jurors, right? And we're trying to figure out where you're going with this.
false memory, would that include memories from actual previous events in a person's life?
It could be, they could be misplacing that memory in time, or they could be generating something that didn't, that has no relevance.
Confabulation, is confabulation taught in medical school?
Yeah, I taught that lecture on it was pertaining to Wernicke-Korsakoff dementia.
You mentioned something about filling gaps when you were in the context of confabulation. Can you expound on that a bit more for the jury?
So in a person who's had a traumatic brain injury, they are not remembering. So in order to remember something, you have to be recording it. So if you're unconscious, obviously you're not recording anything. But if you're awake, you are recording information. But you need to store that information, and then you need to be able to retrieve that information later. So in somebody that has amnesia, they might not have had the opportunity to store that information because the impact occurred right as they were recording that information. And then after the impact, they might not be able to store those memories, or they might not be able to retrieve those memories.
In terms of confabulation, are older memories sometimes substituted for a current event?
It could be.
Have you experienced patients that are experiencing confabulation?
Yes, dementia patients, they forget things and then they fill in the gaps with other information.
When filling in gaps with other information, are those persons trying to be deceptive?
No, sometimes they just don't remember. They used to bank with a certain institution and then they closed that account years ago, but they might not remember that they closed it. So they show up at the bank looking for their funds and the funds aren't available.
Is there any medical study or history which connects a person who has suffered a traumatic brain injury with confabulation?
There are studies on it. I just found a document recently, but I didn't have a chance to read the whole thing. But yeah, they do think more data should be collected on confabulation.
How soon after a person experiences a traumatic brain injury would they actually start to experience amnesia, for example, of the event?
And it could be immediately upon awakening from the loss of consciousness, or it could be maybe they didn't lose consciousness. Maybe they just have difficulty with their memory. It could be immediately after the impact.
Same question with confabulation. If a person suffers a traumatic brain injury, how soon after could confabulation enter the picture?
It could be immediate.
Is there and this was one of the questions that you asked coming into this case as a consultant, but how long might a circumstance of confabulation persist?
It's indefinite.
Might it resolve itself on its own at some point?
It could.
And if it resolved it, how would it resolve itself on its own?
How we don't really understand the mechanisms of confabulation. There are many theories about this circuit of the brain and that circuit of the brain, but there's nothing conclusive. So we don't know.
It's a poorly worded question on my part. What I was trying to ask, doctor, is that if a person is experiencing confabulation, a false memory, for example, is it the case that that person could then remember what reality was with regard to the instance?
They could, over time, they might have a more accurate memory.
In regards to this case, can you explain or let the jury know what procedures, what methods you undertook to answer the questions that were asked of you in this case?
So if it's a case of traumatic brain injury, I always want three things. I want the accident report, usually generated by police, and I want the EMS records. And usually the police arrive first, so they might see something that is no longer a factor after EMS arrives. And then I want the EMS records, and then I want the emergency department records.
Now, all of the things that you just mentioned, the police report records, but particularly the EMS or the fire rescue records, is that right? EMS fire rescue?
Yes.
All right, so particularly with regard to the fire rescue records and the hospital records, is timing important for your evaluation as to whether someone had a traumatic brain injury or concussion?
Yes, because as I showed in the graphic, it matters what you've seen at the scene of the event. So if there was loss of consciousness, if it happened, 5 days later, it really doesn't fall within those diagnostic criteria. But if the patient lost consciousness after the impact, or if the patient had amnesia directly after the impact, if these things were witnessed, then that confirms the diagnosis of traumatic brain injury.
Would records either from fire rescue or hospital, records that, let's say, for example, let me back up. Let's say that a traumatic event, a boating accident, a car accident occurs on January 1st of any given year. Would medical records that were generated a year later be of any value to you in determining whether the individual suffered a concussion back on January 1st?
Probably not. It should be all in the records from the first 72 hours. I mean, there is one instance I can think of where maybe the patient didn't get brain imaging and they get it done much later. And it does show that there was trauma to the brain. It's a specific, maybe they have contusions of their frontal lobes or their temporal lobes on both sides. So something like that, if I couldn't make the diagnosis of traumatic brain injury from the records from the first 72 hours, it's possible that it could be diagnosed years later, but then you wouldn't know if it occurred right at that moment or occurred before or after.
With regard to the imaging that you would not know, could you explain that a little bit?
The imaging, yeah. I mean, how would you know the patient didn't have another traumatic brain injury after the first one or have a prior one? It'd be hard to date the image. You could just see that a traumatic brain injury happened at some point in time.
In this particular case, did you receive the records that you'd like to have generally, that you just explained a few moments ago, in order to make a determination as to whether Mr. Pino suffered a concussion or traumatic brain injury?
I did. I received the report from the Fish and Wildlife, and I received the EMS records from Fire Rescue, and I received a small amount of records from Baptist, Maine, and then I contacted the law firm because I could tell that all of the notes weren't in there, and then I was later sent a more complete set of records.
When you say the law firm, you're talking about my law firm?
Yes.
Is that right? Once you had all of those records, were you able to make a determination as to whether Mr. Pino, number one, had a mechanical means by which a head trauma occurred, and whether there was enough evidence based on the records to establish a loss of consciousness or any of the other factors? that we just talked about in the criteria.
Yes, I could see that he had a plausible mechanism of injury. He had a scalp hematoma, and it required 7 staples.
What does that mean, a scalp
A
hematoma?
scalp hematoma, so when he bumped his head, there was like blood accumulating under the surface of the skin, and there was a laceration, so they had to repair it with staples. I threw out the medical record, and it said that, he was witnessed unconscious on the boat. And so that automatically, that made it very clear that he meets the diagnostic criteria for traumatic brain injury. He also had had amnesia, retrograde and anterograde or post-traumatic amnesia, but that wasn't even necessary to make the diagnosis.
Okay. I have some connection points. So earlier when the girls were testifying, I had wondered about this. The girls were testifying. There was 2 girls that testified yesterday or the day before, conflating days. And they had stated that they thought George was dead because he was lying down. And I had wondered, like, why is the statement so imperative? And now we're getting the connected of the dots. They're the ones that are stating that he was unconscious. They're the ones that are stating that they saw him lying on the ground when the accident occurred, before everybody was jumping out of the boat, etc. Just wanted to make that connection. And I'm going to back it up just a smidge. Now she's talking about he has retrograde amnesia. How does she know that?
And so that automatically, that made it very clear that he meets the diagnostic criteria for traumatic brain injury. He also had had amnesia, retrograde and anterograde or post-traumatic amnesia, but that wasn't even necessary to make the diagnosis.
Let's talk with regard back to the diagnosis, so we'll get to amnesia in a moment. In addition to those records, were you aware of any eyewitness testimony as to whether Mr. Pino lost consciousness at any time?
I had a deposition transcript from a witness, and that said that he was seen unconscious.
Did you have an opportunity to note if Mr. Pino had injured his denture, his teeth in any way as a result of the accident?
Yes, I received some records that showed that he'd been to the dentist, and there were pictures of broken teeth.
So with regard to the pictures of broken teeth, assuming that the broken teeth did not predate the accident, is that significant in any way in your analysis?
Well, it's not needed to make a diagnosis of traumatic brain injury, but it's the whole clinical picture.
How does it fit the whole clinical picture? Explain that.
Well, that there was trauma to the face and to the head.
You mentioned a moment ago amnesia. Did you make a determination as to whether amnesia was present as a result of the traumatic brain injury?
So I reviewed the videos of,
Which videos?
so he was interviewed by Fish and Wildlife after the accident, and there were a number of instances in which he said that he was very clear about what happened. And then he said, well, maybe that, well, I'm not really sure. And then he would give the wrong answer. And this happened a number of times during his interview. So in one instance, he said, oh, I know exactly who was sitting behind me. And then he said, well, I'm pretty sure who was sitting behind me. And then he said the names of 2 girls. And
What were the names of the girls?
Coco and Andrea, I believe. And then, but in the report that came out from Fish and Wildlife, there were 2 different people sitting there.
Are you saying, Dr. Baird, that the fact that Mr. Pino may have been mistaken about who was sitting in the back, that just because he made a mistake, that's evidence of amnesia?
Well, if it's just that one thing, maybe I wouldn't think of that, but he made other mistakes too. So he said, this is the size of my engines on my boat, and that turned out to be incorrect.
Do you recall what he said and how it is that he turned out to be incorrect?
He said it was, I'm not a boat owner, but he said he had two 225 engines, And then when the final report came out, it said that he had 300 engines on his boat. And then he made other errors also. They asked him, what did you see after you were first ejected? And he said, oh, I know exactly what I saw. And then he couldn't come up with what he saw. And then he said, it was really scary. And I'm having a problem recalling. And then he had another episode where he said, I'm very clear who was under the boat. And then he said it was Natty, Natty. He kept repeating Natty, Natty, Natty was under the boat. And then later he said it was Lucy under the boat. And then the report came out that it was Luciana.
Are you aware whether or not the police report that you reviewed indicated, in fact, who was under the boat in this case? Is that right?
Yes.
And was it your determination, based on learning that information in the police report, that Mr. Pino was mistaken when he said it was Nati who was under the boat?
Yes, and it's not a mistake you would expect someone to make.
So all of these things together, is it the how do you characterize all of these mistakes and facts with regard to your diagnosis of amnesia?
When you look at the whole clinical picture, he did have the plausible mechanism of injury. He did have loss of consciousness, so he automatically meets the diagnosis for traumatic brain injury. And then when he wakes up, I could understand someone not remembering exactly who was sitting behind them, but he would remember what size engine he has. He would remember the name of the girl that was under the boat. And so these are mistakes that no one should make. And it fits with the clinical picture of amnesia.
And would you characterize that or categorize that as retro?
You can't even hear me. Oh my goodness. Are you buying what she's selling? Because he didn't know the engine size. Are you buying his amnesia? Are you buying the fact that he didn't know who was underneath the boat? We do know that he did have we do know that he had a head injury. Is it possible that there are many factors, right? Did he actually have a brain injury? Was he intoxicated? Was he in shock? All of these factors. But what is it that they're trying to sell to us that we at home, the jurors, need to sort of figure out? They're trying to explain away some of his misstatements. Does it matter? And we're going to see exactly when the prosecution gets up and she has her explanations and how she is going to figure out whether or not this is a line of BS.
Retrograde amnesia or anterograde?
So there were aspects of both. So if it were something that happened right before the injury, and he couldn't remember that, then that's retrograde amnesia. If it's something that happened after the impact, that would be anterograde or post-traumatic amnesia. And there were examples of both.
You actually met with Mr. Pino at some point in your office, is that right?
Yes.
Was it necessary for you to meet with Mr. Pino before you could reach your diagnosis of traumatic brain injury and amnesia?
No, I had what I needed from the medical records and the EMS records and the Fish and Wildlife report to make my diagnosis and come to my conclusion.
Was
And,
that
and the
based,
I'm sorry, the videos also. I reviewed the videos.
and was that based on the criteria that you discussed earlier this morning?
Yes, I apply those with every traumatic brain injury case. I apply those same criteria, and then I determine if you can make a definite diagnosis of traumatic brain injury or not. And they're very easy to use.
Was there any benefit that you received as a consultant in this case in formulating your opinion by meeting with Mr. Pino?
So it wasn't necessary. Almost all of the traumatic brain injury cases I've been consulted on as an expert witness, they almost always want me to meet the patient and interview and examine the patient. But in general, I don't need that to determine if they had a traumatic brain injury, if I have records from that time.
Hmm. Well, what do you think? I turned it down just a little because that microphone is annoying. What do you think? They didn't mention anything about the wake and the other boat. I think they're sort of sidestepping that.
Dr. Bear, when we were talking about the criteria, you mentioned that one of the criteria you look for in determining TBI, traumatic brain injury, is the failure of the individual to be able to follow a two-part command. Is that right?
Yes,
The example you gave, correct me if I'm wrong, was that pick up your right arm and touch your ear or something to that effect.
such your left ear.
Your left arm. My left arm is right here. You also mentioned that a single command, failure to be able to follow a single command, which is more complex to the brain, following a single command or a double command?
Well, a two-step command is going to be more difficult.
Forgive me, a two-step command, right?
Yes.
A single-step command versus a two-step command.
Yes,
The two-step command is,
more difficult, yes.
if an individual, is there a measure on the degree of injury to the brain if a person cannot even follow a single command?
Well, that would be reduced responsiveness, yes.
Dr. Barrett, you charge my law firm a fee for your services, is that correct?
Yes,
Is this something that you normally do as a part of your consulting?
yes.
And how much do you charge, or how much did you charge my law firm if people call?
So I charge $600 per hour for the initial record review, $800 per hour for report writing, depositions, trial, and the total, I believe the total was $29,200.
That's as of today?
Those are the invoices that were submitted already, yes.
In charging our law
29
firm
grand.
$600 and $800 for review, $600 per hour. Were those fees, were those hourly rates any different than what you charged for any other law
No.
firm over the last several months?
No.
I don't have any further questions. Let me know.
All right, before we get to the prosecution's case, woo, $29,000. When I tell you, I've said it before, I'll say it again. In all of these cases, who is the one follow the money, right? It's the lawyers and the experts. They get paid a lot of money to say the things that you want them to say and or do, right? So I have a question. My question is, if when we are listening, so as I jumped in on this case when it started to go to trial. I didn't do any prior research to this case. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. This time I didn't. I wanted to see what came into evidence. My question is, yesterday when Cecilia Pino was testifying, she stated that she was life-lighted out after the event. We know that not all of the girls were attended to immediately, right? We know that Lucy was life-lighted out, Cecilia was life-lighted out. Now, was she life-lighted out with Lucy? I don't know the answer to that question, but she was life-lighted out. Was it because she was going with Lucy, or did Cecilia's injuries further that she needed to be life-lighted out? I believe at one point in time, the two other girls who were severely injured, Mia and Katie, were transported to the hospital right away. But as you see in the videos, George Pino was not sent to the hospital right away. He was sitting there talking to police for quite a while. And that bothers me a little bit and he had a big gash on the back of his head. Why was he not immediately transported to the hospital? Was it his doing that he said he didn't need medical attention and be transported right away? Because the accident happened at 6:37 p.m. And then I believe, and I'm not exactly sure, but I believe that he wasn't transported to the hospital until several hours later. Not until like 10:30 that night. Why? And if he did have a severe traumatic brain injury, I don't understand why he wasn't transported to the hospital right away. Again, could be that maybe he didn't think that his injuries were that bad. The police didn't think that his injuries were that bad. But I just don't understand why he wasn't transported right away. Maybe they didn't think his injuries were that severe. All right, enough blabbity blab blab from me. It is going to be the prosecution's turn. And raise your hand if you think that the prosecution is going to just discredit everything that she has to say. I do. You want to know why? Because this prosecution, Laura Adams is her name. Yesterday, she ripped Cecilia Pino a new one at the end, right? Your daughter wasn't injured. Right? Your daughter wasn't the one that was killed, right? So she really honed in on what this trial is about. So let us go. And I have a little zoom room. Not much.
Good
Hey.
afternoon.
Here we go.
Hello.
Afternoon.
Let's start with this.
I guess it is.
You're
They're an
here
hour ahead.
because you were hired by George Pino's law firm to be a consultant in this case, correct?
Ding, ding, ding.
Yes,
Do you see George Pino in this courtroom?
yes.
Can you please point to an identifying article of clothing so our record will be clear who we're talking about?
He's wearing a light blue tie and a dark blue jacket.
Do you remember when you were first contacted by the defense firm about this case?
When I was first contacted,
Yes.
I don't remember the date I was first contacted, but I was retained, I believe, in October of 2025.
Okay, so that was September. So almost 3 years after this incident. That's fair to say, right?
Yes, the accident was on September 4th, 2022.
And you first met with him on February 2nd of 2026?
Yes,
And you met with him a second time on March 9th of 2026, correct?
yes.
Those are the only times that you've seen him. Is that fair to say, aside from here
Other
in
than
court?
in the courtroom, yes,
Okay.
today.
And when you were retained in this case, you were asked to do only 3 things. 1, answer if he had a TBI, traumatic brain injury. 2, could it cause amnesia and false memories without the intent to deceive? And 3, how long those false memories could persist, correct?
It's not
Oh my gosh, sorry, I have to pause. You hear the inflection in her voice? Those false memories. She's gonna get it. She's getting to it.
the exact wording, but it's mostly correct, yes.
And you constrained your work in this case to only answering those 3 questions.
You constrained your work. I love it.
Isn't that true?
Yes,
And those questions came from the defense team, correct?
yes.
Now, regarding the issue of a traumatic brain injury, you would agree that there is a spectrum of traumatic brain injuries from, say, like a football player who gets knocked out on the field, but then is able to recover and go right back out and play again. Or you could wind up with a traumatic brain injury that is so severe that it permanently disables an individual. That's fair to say about TBIs, right?
I'm not sure if they're allowed to go right back into play. But I agree that there's a wide spectrum of presentations of traumatic brain injury.
We don't want to get into the concussion protocols of the NFL, but clearly we understand that if a player is knocked unconscious, once they are reviewed by another doctor that might be at the stadium, if they pass the clearance, they can go right back that same day, right?
I don't want to answer it. I don't do
Okay.
sports concussions on the field. I'm sorry.
But at the end of the day, whether your head gets hit on the football field or your head gets hit on a boat, your head is hit, right?
Yes, you're right.
And so the type of responses that you can have if you have a traumatic brain injury, it can vary depending on the severity of the injury, right?
It can depend on the severity of the injury. Some people are more vulnerable to injuries and some people are much more resilient. So with the same injury, one person might get up and walk away and be fine, and another might be permanently disabled.
Okay. Now, you were asked you were asked to only look at these 3 questions that I've spoken with you about. At any point in your evaluation of this defendant, limited though it might be, do you have any evidence that he is suffering from dementia?
I did not diagnose him with dementia.
You're not a dentist, right?
No,
You got the opportunity to look at some photographs of the defendant's teeth, right?
yes.
Now, they weren't broken, were they? They were chipped right at the top, right?
Pieces were broken off, but I'm not a dentist.
Right. Like you didn't lose teeth, right?
The tips were broken off. I'm sorry if I'm using the wrong terminology, but
Hold on, let's get the actual image. It'll just take me a minute.
All right, is she poking holes in the defense's theory that he had some sort of amnesia? She's making
I'll show
really
you an
good
exhibit.
points.
It's an evidence in states number 28. Excuse me, defense 28.
okay.
2B, sorry, 2B looks like an 8, sorry. 2B. These are the photographs of the defendant's teeth that you were shown, correct?
I believe so, yes.
I believe it's in evidence.
It is.
For a different number.
2B.
Got it.
So these are not broken teeth, these are chipped teeth, right?
I'm sorry, to me, the pieces of the teeth are broken off, but pieces of the teeth are missing.
Showing you defense exhibit A. I'm showing you defense exhibit A35. Do you recognize this exhibit?
It's the Miami-Dade Fire Rescue. It's really hard for me to read, but yes, I believe elements of this are in my report.
And in fact, you listed in your report that you were given a Miami-Dade Fire Rescue report for the defendant from this incident, correct?
Yes, it has 4 pages.
And how many pages does exhibit A35 have?
I count 5.
4 pages for the report, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, and then just a final,
Oh, this just says certified copy.
right? So this is in fact the fire rescue report that you reviewed for this particular case, correct?
I believe so.
Okay, Your Honor, at this time I move Defense A35 into evidence as a state's exhibit.
No objection.
A35, March 20, State's Exhibit 119.
Let's go over some of the information on that report.
Oh, hang on. She's gonna tell us everything. Hold on.
The font is
One,
really
let
small.
me get my copy so I can.
Oh, she's gonna get into it. What on here says that he has amnesia or he has a traumatic brain injury?
So, first off, can you read for us what the narrative was of the fire rescue worker that treated George Pino on September 4th, 2022? On the first page in the middle.
Okay. Narrative. Patient was the driver of a boat that struck a piling by Caesars Creek. Several people stated that he was unconscious. He denies any neck or back pain. Assessment revealed a laceration to his right elbow, laceration to his head, and a hematoma to his right mid-axillary ribs.
Now, let's talk about what it says about where the defendant was taken to. The defendant in this case was taken to Baptist Hospital, wasn't he?
Disposition, hospital name, Baptist Hospital, Miami.
Now, Baptist Hospital, that, to your knowledge, is not a level 1 trauma center where he was brought, was it?
I don't believe it is, but I haven't looked them up recently.
On page 2 of this report, you'll see in the upper part of the page, there's a part that indicates that on September 4th, at 11:14, it's in military time, 23:14 and 0 hours, so about 11:14 under vitals. What does it say?
I-4 opens eyes spontaneously. Verbal 5, oriented, smiles, follows objects, interacts. Motor 6, obeys commands, appropriate response to stimulation. Total GCS 15.
GCS stands for Glasgow Coma Scale, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
And it's an assessment of how alert and awake a patient might be, correct?
Yes.
And 15 is basically the highest level that you can have, isn't that true?
Yes.
All right. Remember, I had asked this question before. See, they're answering my questions. Number 1, why wasn't he taken to the hospital earlier? Apparently, his injuries didn't indicate that. Number 2, if his injuries were presented to be something more severe, he would have been taken to a different hospital, right? Not one that is not a level 1 trauma hospital. He'd been taken to whatever the highest, I don't know, whatever the next highest trauma center is, right? Because Lucy and Cecilia were airlifted, taken to somewhere else. Then she's talking about this GCS score is a 15. It's the highest level that you can have. It's 11:14 in the evening. He's responding to things. So she is definitely poking holes in their theory that he has this retrograde amnesia, he's misstated facts. Now maybe at the scene he might have been disoriented, what have you, when things first started. I don't know. You let me know what you think once the stream is over. We can talk about it. Oh boy, here we go.
Now, you indicated in your testimony that the defendant gave some answers to Lieutenant Thompson when he was questioned at Elliott Key that were inaccurate. Let's go through those inaccuracies that you talked about, that you noted in your report.
Let's go through it.
Number one, you said that he was inaccurate in his description of who was behind him. Do you remember saying that?
Yes.
I'm going to show you an exhibit. It was marked into evidence. It states 11. And it's a chart of similar to looking like Mr. Pino's vessel. And there are seats labeled 2 and 3. Are there names next to those two individuals?
Yes, they're handwritten names.
Okay.
One says Sarah and one says Mia.
Right. So even if Mr. Pino didn't correctly remember the names of the girls who were seated behind him, you indicated that could be understandable, right?
If it were just one mistake, then
Okay, so if he was mistaken about that, though, it could be understandable because number one, these girls were all dressed similarly. They were all in like string bikinis. Do you know that?
I don't know what they were all wearing.
And number two, they're behind him. So it's not like he's looking at them while he's operating the boat, hopefully, right?
He said that he turned to look behind him, but
Okay, but you indicated on your testimony on direct that it's understandable that he might have gotten those two girls' names incorrect, right?
yes,
Now, you also mentioned that he was wrong about stating what the horsepower of his two engines was, right? That FWC said they were 300 horsepower and that he had said they were 225 horsepower. You remember saying that?
yes, I do.
Okay.
I'm sorry, yes.
So the two things that he was asked about that happened prior to impact, one that he got wrong, one was about who was behind him, which we've already said, that's understandable. And the other thing that he got wrong about what happened prior to the impact was him saying that his engines were 225s rather than 300s, right?
Yes,
Now, you indicated there were two other things that he got wrong. One was that he couldn't remember exactly what happened right after the impact. So now we're talking about him remembering what happened in the moments or minutes after his vessel had slammed into a channel mark at almost 50 miles an hour, right?
I'm sorry, I don't know how fast he was going.
Okay. So wouldn't you agree that an impact at a high rate of speed might be different than an impact at a low rate of speed?
It could be, but the people have different vulnerabilities, so
But that information wasn't relevant to your determination of how to answer those three questions the defense gave you, right? The speed of the vessel?
no, the fact that he had loss of consciousness
Okay.
was important.
So let's go back to the four things that you had highlighted that he got wrong. The size of his engines and who was behind him. Those are things that he got wrong that happened pre-crash. But now the other two things that you highlighted, number one, he couldn't remember exactly what happened right after impact. And number two, he initially said that it was Nati that he recovered from under the boat. Those are things that happened post-impact. You would agree to that, right?
Yes,
And you would agree that in a written statement that he gave to Lieutenant Thompson, and when he spoke with Lieutenant Thompson, he actually did in fact note that it was Lucy that he had recovered. You're aware of that, right?
well, in my report, it says that he starts out by saying it was very clear who was under the boat, and then he said Nati, Nati, Nati over and over again. And then later he said it was Lucy. And then the report came out that he removed Luciana from under the vessel.
I'm going to show you an exhibit that's in evidence. It states number 102. Can you read this statement? Well, first off, let me ask you, would you consider a police officer asking a person to tell them what happened and then write down what happened? That's a two-step request from the officer, correct?
Well, it's It's a two-step if you ask them to do it all in a row, so you have to remember each step. So I might ask a patient, please pick up your right hand and use it to touch your left ear. And if they're confused, they might pick up their hand and then they forget what they're supposed to do, and they might later remember touch the ear, not at all.
But you said that you watched the video of Lieutenant Thompson interacting with your client, correct?
So he's not my client.
Pardon me, the defendant.
Yes.
So you then must have seen Lieutenant Thompson talking with the defendant seated at a picnic table and asking him about what happened and to write it down on a written statement. You remember that?
I think I do remember him writing something.
And so that would be kind of a two-step request. Tell me what happened and then write it down.
Well, if there's any bit of a delay afterwards, it wouldn't be a two-step command.
Do you remember there being a delay between Lieutenant Thompson saying, tell me what happened and then write it down?
Well, there would be a delay if he has to get out the paper and hand him the pen.
What if the paper is right in front of the defendant and the defendant has a pen in his hand?
I teach the neurological examination. That's not how we teach someone to do a two-step command. It's something that you say immediately. You say both commands in sequence immediately, and they have to remember them both.
Why don't you read along with me? Isn't this what the defendant wrote at the request of Lieutenant Thompson? Going back to ORC, Ocean View Club, the through channel, pass boat on left side of my boat, veered to the right to avoid big waves. Coming back into wave, I lost control of steering wheel as boat was going through the big waves. I was ejected from boat. In the back of the boat, I saw Mia and Sarah, my wife Ceci next to me, and the others in the front area of boat. I believe we were traveling at 40 to 45 RPMs. I have owned the boat since early 2020. I swam to Lucy and stayed until boat came. Then I stayed looking for others inside the boat. Did you see Mr.
Yes.
Pino writing that out for the lieutenant, right?
I believe I saw him writing something, but I couldn't see the text as he was writing it.
So of those four things that you highlighted were inaccurate answers. Who he recovered from under the boat, even though initially he said it was Nati. When he gave his written statement, he clarified it was in fact Lucy. Isn't that right?
He did clarify it, and I put it in my report that he clarified it later.
So now,
Okay, so I just have a small couple of nuances with that. I forget what time was that written statement made, and had he kind of talked to some other people? I don't know exactly who he did or who he did not talk to, and if like the police kept him away from other people, because if perhaps he did talk to some other people, they could have clarified the situation for him, or he's hearing people talk. It's not a huge issue, but these are sort of, I call these like little semantics, and I don't really necessarily, it's not moving the needle for me one way or the other.
now of these four things that you have highlighted, who's behind him, the size of his engines, that he couldn't remember exactly what happened right after the impact, and that he didn't remember who was under the boat. We've pretty much explained away, he didn't see necessarily who was behind him. The girls were dressed similarly, right? You said that would be understandable if he got that wrong, correct?
I wouldn't be surprised if someone made one mistake on something that's not that important.
Right, but in your direct examination, you said to Mr. Shapiro, it would be understandable if he got wrong who was behind him.
Yes, I did.
Okay. And his issue about the size of his engines being 225 versus 300, it's a pretty small detail. Would you agree?
The boat owners that I know, it's not a small detail.
Okay. The idea that he couldn't remember exactly what happened post-impact, that's not really surprising, is it?
Well, to me, it's evidence of amnesia.
Okay. But that would be amnesia post-crash, correct? Not pre-crash.
That's correct.
And then the fourth thing that you talked about, that he mistakenly indicated who was under the boat. In point of fact, although he initially said Nati, he corrected himself on that written statement, correct?
He did correct himself.
But you didn't note that in your report that you drafted in this case, did you?
It says in my report, Mr. Pino said that it was very clear who was under the boat. He said it was Nati Reed. He kept repeating the name Nati. Later, he said it was Lucy.
So when you were testifying, you indicated that he was wrong about who was under the boat, but you didn't clarify that he, in fact, corrected himself.
Objection, she did.
I thought I did.
Sure.
I'm sorry, I thought I did.
Now, would you agree that sometimes being involved in a stressful event, whether it's a boat crash or a car crash, in the immediate moments after something like that happens, would you agree that even if you don't have a traumatic brain injury, sometimes the details of what happened can be a little foggy because you're working through in your brain what just happened?
It might, or it might be the opposite. It might be something that you can't forget.
Now, other than the defendant not remembering who sat behind him, the horsepower of his engines, recalling exactly what he saw after being ejected from the boat, and stating that it was Nati, not Lucy, you're not sure that there were any other signs of amnesia. Isn't that fair to say?
I didn't see any other signs of amnesia.
Okay. Now, let's talk about the things that the defendant got right about what happened. You didn't note those things in your report, did you?
No, I didn't note every single thing, no.
So let's go over some of those things. You know that in his interview with Lieutenant Thompson, he said that when asked, hey, where is your wife? He indicated that he was asking about the condition of his wife and the girls that were on the boat. And he said to Lieutenant Thompson that Cammie was on a boat with his wife. Do you remember hearing that part of the conversation?
He might have said that. I wasn't paying attention to that part of it.
Now, if Cammie, whose given name is Camille Alvarez, came to this courtroom and testified that when she was rescued from the scene, she was on a boat with Lucy as well as Mrs. Pino, that would be a detail that the defendant gave to Lieutenant Thompson that was accurate, right?
If he got it correct, then it's accurate.
And you know that the defendant told Lieutenant Thompson that he had been a boater.
Oh, we can see where she's going. So instead of focusing on the things that he got wrong, she's focusing on the things that he got correct. And if those details that he got correct are very precise, how could he have amnesia or be able to remember specific details about things and not remember other details? We'll see.
For a long time. That was accurate too, correct?
Yes.
You know that he told the police that he felt fine when he was speaking with Lieutenant Thompson.
I don't remember that exact comment.
But he certainly wasn't life-flighted from Elliott Key Harbor, was he?
No, he wasn't.
In fact, when fire rescue looked at him, they found him to be on a Glasgow coma scale of 15, as high as you can get, correct?
Yes.
And he was transported to a hospital that wasn't a level 1 trauma center. He was transported to Baptist that doesn't have the same capabilities, say, as like Ryder Trauma here over at Jackson Memorial. Fair to say?
I'm not sure what capabilities. I haven't worked at Baptist in a long time.
During his interview with Lieutenant Thompson, the defendant was able to point out that his daughter, known as Little Ceci, that she was also there on the island with him. Are you aware that he said that?
I don't remember that part of the video of the conversation.
So if, hypothetically, we had video footage where Little Ceci was pointed out on the island with the defendant, he would have been right about that fact, right?
Yes,
Mr. Pino told Lieutenant Thompson that the boating trip that he'd been on was part of a celebration for his daughter's birthday. Did you know that his daughter, little Ceci, was going to be turning 18 a couple of days after this incident?
I knew that it was a birthday celebration.
So he got that fact right also, didn't he?
Apparently did.
He also told Lieutenant Thompson that the other girls that were on his boat were his daughter's friends. Do you know that that's also accurate?
I don't remember that part of the video.
Okay, well, if there was testimony even from the defendant's wife that the other girls that were on this boat were his daughter's friends, then Mr. Pino telling that to Lieutenant Thompson, he gave an accurate fact, didn't he?
Yes,
He knew that he told the police he'd owned that boat since 2020, right?
I believe so.
And in his written statement that he gave to the police that night, why don't you read this sentence that starts here, I have owned. What's that sentence?
I have owned the boat since early 2020.
So that was another detail that he got correct, right?
Yes,
He said that he was the only one who operated the vessel that day, didn't he?
I don't remember that part.
If his wife testified that her husband was the one that was operating the boat on that day, that would be another fact that he got accurate, correct?
Correct.
Do you remember him saying on the video to Lieutenant Thompson that he had checked the safety equipment on his vessel before leaving to go out on the water with the girls? Do you remember that?
I don't remember that part of the video.
If in point of fact, on the video, Lieutenant Thompson asked him, did you check the safety equipment? And he indicated that, yes, I did check the safety equipment. If that was on that video, then the defendant saying that he had checked the safety equipment, that would be another accurate statement, correct?
Well, how do I know he checked it?
He knew at the time that he was interviewed that he was the owner of the vessel, correct?
Yes,
He knew that there were two girls seated in the back of the boat, correct?
yes.
Now let's go over what he said about this crash. During his interview with Lieutenant Thompson, he told Lieutenant Thompson that they were getting to, quote, the last channel marker. Do you remember him saying that?
I think so.
And he says that they were, quote, on the last marker. You said you remember him saying that?
I think I do.
Do you know where this crash actually happened?
I'm not familiar with the waterways down there.
Okay. If there was testimony that this crash happened at a channel marker that was labeled channel marker 15, and that was the last channel marker that a southbound vessel would pass, he would have been right about that detail, right? Let me break it down. That's probably not a very well worded question. If there was testimony that the crash that the defendant was in happened at channel marker 15, number one, and if number two, channel marker 15 is the last channel marker for boats traveling south through the Cutter Bank Channel, if he said he was approaching the last marker and channel marker 15 was the last in that channel, he would have been accurate about that detail too, right?
Yes.
So I'm going to approach you now. I understand you might not be a voter, but this is State's Exhibit number 4. Do you see on State's Exhibit number 4 where it says Cutter Bank here?
Yes.
You see a series of red triangles and green squares here?
Yes.
And if this part here that I'm pointing to is north and this is south,
Mhm.
what is the name of the last channel marker that we see in this exhibit?
Is this the channel marker, the square? Okay.
What does it say here?
It says G and then 15 in quotations.
Okay, so you want to maybe sit down for a moment? So if the defendant's statement to the lieutenant is that the crash happened at the last channel marker, and if these green squares and red triangles are channel markers, what's the last channel marker for a boat that's going from the north to the south? What is it labeled as?
So I see a green square labeled as G, parentheses 15.
Okay, so if that's the last channel marker, and if that's where the crash happened, then when the defendant was talking to Lieutenant Thompson, he was giving accurate reporting about where that crash occurred, wasn't he? Okay. Now, you're aware that the defendant was
Well, what do you think so far? Is she making good points? They're pointing out all of the facts that he got right versus the 4 facts that she said that he got wrong. So, at the time of the crash or after the crash, does he have amnesia? She's making good points.
released from Baptist Hospital the very next day, correct?
Yes.
I'm almost finished, Your Honor, if you could give me just a little bit of time. Thank you. Now, the report that you prepared for this case did not list all those things that we just went through that the defendant actually got right in his interview with Lieutenant Thompson. Did it?
No.
You only listed those 4 things that we've discussed that he got wrong.
Correct.
You were given an MRI that had been, or the results of an MRI examination that had been done of the defendant's brain from July 1st of 2025. You remember reviewing that? That MRI that you received, you didn't really take that into account at all in formulating your opinions in this case, did you?
I don't think it was very helpful.
Okay. And in point of fact, there was nothing about that MRI of the defendant's brain from July 1st of 2025 to indicate that there was any significant trauma to this man, correct?
It's not specific for trauma, no.
When you met with the defendant in February of this year, you never asked him if he sought treatment for the supposed brain fog that he had, did you?
Well, I don't remember if I asked him that question specifically, but he did tell me that he was getting treatment and he was improving for his symptoms overall.
Isn't it true that when you asked him about the treatment that he had, he told you that he had had therapy and psychiatric medications, correct?
Yes.
Now, you said that your claim that the defendant could have suffered from amnesia comes largely from the videos that you witnessed of the defendant speaking with Lieutenant Thompson, right?
It's not just from the videos. I look at the whole clinical picture, and he did have a significant trauma. He did have loss of consciousness. He meets diagnostic criteria for traumatic brain injury. And these mistakes that he made are consistent with amnesia.
Right. That being said, though, like, there was no scientific test that you could administer to this defendant to prove that he had amnesia, was there?
After the fact, no.
You did administer a test called the Montreal Cognitive Assessment Test, right?
Yes,
But that doesn't prove that he had amnesia, did it?
that cannot prove that he had amnesia at the time of the injury.
And in fact, the MRI for the defendant that was done on July 1st, that was normal for a man of his age, wasn't it?
He did have some white matter lesions in his brain, which is not surprising for someone who has a history of high cholesterol untreated and someone for that age.
Right. So it looked like a middle-aged man that might have high cholesterol, right?
It could be.
Now, you've indicated that thus far you've been paid $29,200 for your work in this case.
Yes,
That does not include the fee that you're going to charge for being here and testifying today in court, does it?
no, it doesn't.
You have no clinical tests that you can state to this jury that prove that the defendant had what I think you refer to in your report as a false memory without the intent to deceive, do you?
No, I can't test him for what happened back in 2022.
Now, it was your goal in evaluating the defendant to make a determination about really, what he remembered of the crash, correct?
Well, my goal was to answer the 3 questions.
Right. And part of that was to determine whether or not the defendant remembered what happened, right?
No, it was to look at the entirety of the medical record and determine the answers to those 3 questions.
You did not ask the defendant nor his wife that was with him when you met with him how the crash occurred, did you?
No,
You did not ask how the accident occurred, even though you were trying to find out what he remembered of the events surrounding the accident, right?
well, I had that from the medical record, and he was starting to get very anxious and stressed, and there's only so many questions you can ask a patient before they end up not being able to function on the cognitive testing.
So you never said to him, tell me how this crash happened?
No, I did not.
So you were evaluating his memory without asking him what he remembered, correct?
I was evaluating his memory on the day that he presented to my office.
Right. So you were evaluating his memory, but you didn't ask him what he remembered, did you?
No, I relied on the records, the medical records, and the Fish and Wildlife report and EMS records.
So again, my question is, you were evaluating his memory, but you did not ask him what happened, did you? I'm asking you, if you can give me a straightforward answer. Did you ask yes or no? I understand, but I'm sorry, let me ask the question again. You were evaluating the defendant's memory, but you did not ask him what he remembered of the crash, did you?
I did not ask him all of the details. I started asking him, how were you right before the crash and what happened after? And he started to get very anxious. And so I stopped with that.
Okay, nothing else.
That's what I thought. Oh my goodness, I appreciate this prosecutor so much. I love her fireworks. I love it. You know that she is getting towards the end when she starts rapid firing questions to you that are like bombs. Here's a bomb. Here's a bomb. Firework. Pew, 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 pew. And I love it. You were asking him about his memory, but you did not ask him about what the crash was about. You didn't ask him to recreate the crash. You asked him about his memories, but you didn't ask him to remember this. That is a bomb drop. Okay. I don't know if he had amnesia or what. This is what I believe. I believe he was in a traumatic accident. We know that pretty much everybody on the right side of the boat had the significant injuries, right? Mia was behind him. Mia has severe brain injuries, and she had some brain surgery. George Pino was directly in front of her. In front of him was Lucy. Lucy was the one that they stated was unconscious, and therefore she drowned because she obviously couldn't take care of herself. They couldn't find her. She was under the boat. All of these contributing factors, she is unalived. Then the next one is, oh goodness gracious, I knew I was going to mess up the names of the girls. Hold on just a second. Let me see if I can find it. Don't come for me. Don't come for me. Kati. So Mia was behind him. So this is the line. Mia was behind him. She was one of the severely injured people. Then there was him. Then there was Lucy, and then Kati was right next to Lucy. And when this is all said and done today, I'm going to show you a picture of the boat and who was sitting where. It'll be on my Facebook page later on today. So, based upon that information, everybody who was on the right side of the boat, because that is where the boat initially crashed into what I call like the hull or the side of the boat, and then it eventually kind of, I think, swayed into the mile marker. Some people were dislodged ejected from the boat. We're only getting bits and pieces of who was where and what, etc., from this trial. But everybody that was on the right side of the boat, either deceased, severely injured for the rest of their life, or had some brain injury, Mia. Mr. Pino could have, at the time of the impact, had hidden his head. They said he was unconscious. So he could have a slight delay in the thick of things, shock, that would disable him to make proper statements. But I do agree with the prosecution that as time wore on and he was giving the statement to Lieutenant Thompson and talking about the events and what he remembered and what he didn't remember, the numerous facts that he got right outweigh the ones he got wrong, in my opinion. You let me know what you think. The defense is going to do some cleanup. Let's see what they're going to do. Yes, and how long is it going to be?
Associated with head trauma,
It can be.
and when someone is suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, do they exhibit anxious behavior?
Yes, they can, yes.
And the type of anxious behavior that Mr. Pino was experiencing in your office that day, would that be consistent with someone who was suffering with post-traumatic stress disorder?
It could be, or it could be anxiety disorder. I can't pinpoint exactly which diagnosis, but he was getting very upset.
Dr. Barrett, prosecutor pointed out that there were three mistakes Mr. Pino had three mistakes in his memory before the accident, and one mistake, I think she said, after the accident. Do you remember that question and answer? That question from the prosecutor a few minutes ago?
I remember she asked the questions, yes.
So lack of memory or mistaken memory before the accident is what we testified to as being retrograde amnesia.
Yes,
And you associated that with the traumatic brain injury, the concussion that Mr. Pino suffered as a result of the crash.
yes,
And so that mistaken memory prior to the crash is consistent with someone who's just suffered a
Objection
concussion.
pleading.
Is the mistake, are the pre-crash mistakes in memory consistent with concussion?
yes. So retrograde amnesia can occur, and it's one of the defining characteristics of traumatic brain injury.
As well as memories, is that true also with memories after the incident?
Post-traumatic amnesia, they define it as post-traumatic amnesia. I refer to it as anterograde amnesia. It's one of the clinical signs that are diagnostic of traumatic brain injury.
Dr. Barrett, if Mr. Pino made additional mistakes in his memory to police officers on the night of the afternoon of the crash, that would only underscore or support your opinion that he was suffering from amnesia. Is that fair to say?
Yes,
So hypothetically, if Mr. Pino told a police officer that the damage to his boat took place on the left side of his boat, when in fact it took place on the right side of his boat, that'd be a pretty big mistake in fact, wouldn't it?
it would be.
Showing you what is evidence that states Exhibit 68. Now, I know that you're not familiar with the way the boat, in this case, Maltz. Are you?
I may have seen pictures of it.
Oh, where might you have seen that? This report?
Yes.
So let me show you what State's
I've
Exhibit
seen
68.
this image.
All right. So State's Exhibit 68. That's what it's pretty simple. What? This is the front of the boat. Do you agree?
Yes.
Is this the right side of the boat? So if Mr. Pino told the police officer that the damage occurred on the left side of the boat, that would be a mistake.
Yes.
Would that be supportive of your opinion that that mistake in memory occurring after the accident is an example of anterograde amnesia?
It's
Did I get that right?
amnesia, it's amnesia. I don't know if that would be retrograde or antegrade. It's right at the moment of impact. I guess it could be retrograde because if he remembers what hit him and where he was.
One way or another, it's amnesia.
It's amnesia. I just don't know if it's retrograde or
And, would,
post-traumatic.
and in your opinion, would that amnesia be related to his concussion that he suffered?
It fits the whole clinical picture, yes.
If Mr. Pino, another hypothetical, if Mr. Pino told the police officers that he was ejected from his boat in the crash, and that was a mistake, in fact, would that also be supportive of your opinion that Mr. Pino was suffering from traumatic brain injury, concussion,
Yes,
and amnesia?
yes.
And I'm going to refer you, Dr. Barrett, to State's Exhibit 102. This is the written statement made by Mr. Pino to the police officer that night. And would you read the sentence where I'm pointing?
I was ejected from the boat.
So this is in fact, that's exactly what Mr. Pino said. It was a mistake in his memory that he reduced to writing when he was asked to do so, right? Would that all tell yes?
Yes,
Would that also be supportive of your opinion that Mr. Pino, even at that time, was suffering from concussion-related amnesia?
yes.
And if Mr. Pino Dr. Barrett, does amnesia in a case like this make it impossible to recall all facts that occurred prior to the accident?
No, I mean, they would especially have difficulty with the events that occurred immediately before the accident.
Would amnesia after the accident require that a person not remember any of the facts that happened after the accident?
No, it could be partial amnesia. It doesn't have to be complete.
In your opinion, after evaluating the medical records and the other documents that you reviewed in this case, do you believe that Mr. Pino was suffering from amnesia because he did not remember some facts?
Yes, it's in the diagnostic criteria that we showed. There could be partial amnesia. Yes,
The criteria you're talking about that we reviewed earlier today, is that
Yes.
right? So that criteria you're saying only requires partial amnesia?
right.
The prosecutor asked you, or referred you to the fire rescue report. You have it up there?
I don't have. You want? Oh, I'm sorry.
Absolutely. Dr. Barrett, I want to refer you back to State's Exhibit 119. That is the fire rescue report. Is that correct?
Yes,
And on page 2 of that report, that's Exhibit 119, the prosecutor asked you about the vital signs that were taken near the bottom of the page there. See that?
yes. It's under vitals, but I don't consider those vital signs. But yes, I know what you mean.
Right. Well, the timestamp that vital sign was taken well, let's talk about that. The timestamp was September 4th at 23:14 hours.
Yes,
You understand, are you aware of military time of 23:14 equates to what for the time that the rest of us go on?
yes,
That's 11:14 at night, correct? Is that correct?
yes,
And at that, in 11:14 at night, the fire rescue paramedic noted that Mr. Pino's eyes were open, he had a score of 4. And by the way, these scores are associated with something called a Glasgow coma scale, is that right?
yes,
That's what the prosecutor was asking you about?
yes.
Can you tell the jury what is a Glasgow coma scale?
So it's a score that is used especially in relation to patients with trauma. And you can give them a numerical score. And one category is, do they open their eyes? So some people won't open their eyes. Some people will open their eyes if you shake them or pinch them, and they'll open their eyes only to very aggressive stimuli. Some people will open their eyes spontaneously. And then another category that we look at is if they're oriented. So maybe if they're disoriented, they don't know what day it is, then they would score lower. But this is he was oriented, and this is obeys commands. And then his total score is 15.
15 is the highest degree of awareness under the Glasgow coma scale.
On that scale, yes.
In other words, the person is, I'm a 15 right now.
You're a 15 right now, yes.
Well, I'm awake, kind of, and aware of what's going on. That's a 15.
Yes.
When Mr. Pino was unconscious on the deck of his boat, what would his Glasgow coma scale be situation? Right.
Well, it would be less than 15. We don't know because we didn't try to stimulate him. So in order to know for sure, you'd have to talk to him, touch him, maybe rub his chest to see if he wakes up. So we don't know. It's definitely less than a 15. And then you would see if he moved also, if he opened his eyes, if he was able to talk.
If Mr. Pino had a Glasgow coma scale at 15 as a total Glasgow, does that mean that he did not suffer a traumatic brain injury?
No, it's consistent with traumatic brain injury, concussion.
Oh my goodness. Stop messing with the microphone. We can't even hear the attorney anymore.
One other thing about Mr. Pino's mistaken memory said, he said to the officer, he pointed out morning, he recalled him telling the officer that he was ejected from the police sergeant's care.
I believe that was said, that he was, that's in my report, that he said that he was ejected.
He said it in his written statement as well. Is that right? Stated 119.
Yes, I believe so.
So if Mr. Pino did not even remember
No, go
he
back.
was on the deck of his boat,
Oh no.
having been ejected out into the water, that would be good evidence of amnesia. Is that right?
It's evidence, yeah, it's all evidence that fits into the picture.
Concussion related amnesia.
Yes.
I have no further questions.
I hope they fix this microphone. Oh boy. All right, we have a little bit of a zoom room, so we're going to zoom. I know that they're wanting the court to take a break. Okay, the jury's out, so they're taking a break. Oh goodness, sorry. So sorry. Maybe they're fixing the microphone. All right, so as you see, the court is on a break. If you need to stretch, take a break, what have you, you're not going to miss anything. We're just going to sit here and chat for a little bit. All right, hello, and thank you, and welcome for joining me again. Today is we're Wednesday, the 17th of June. We are on we're at day 8, day 7, day 8 of the George Pino trial. Day 7. I have day 7. So 5 yesterday, 6. No, I think we're on 8. Oh my goodness gracious. I'm terrible. Am I terrible? Hang on. I'll tell you in just a second. We're on day 8. I said day 7. Oh my goodness. I need to change that. Hold on. Let me change that. Oh, well, I have to change it post. It's okay. All right, who cares? We're on day 8 of the George Pino trial. Are you buying the fact that he had amnesia? I believe that he had some sort of post-traumatic stress element after the crash happened, right? You're in shock, disbelief, your head is gashed, your elbow's gashed, you got something on your stomach. And as I stated before, everybody on the right side of the boat was, I believe, more impacted than others. They didn't get into George Pino's wife's injuries yesterday. She was, from what I understand, she was life flighted to the hospital. Was she, again, was she in the same helicopter that Lucy was? Was she like going with Lucy? We do know that she checked herself out that night. So she wasn't there for very long. She was on the left side of the boat. Some of the other girls that were on the left side of the boat, they testified they didn't have any injuries or nothing severe. All of the people that had severe injuries were on the right side of the boat. And I include George Pino with that because Mia was directly behind him. Lucy was directly in front of him. And Kati was right next to Lucy. That was the line of the people that were the impact of the boat on the right side, hitting the channel marker. They were the ones severely impacted in a variety of forms. So I believe that he was unconscious because it was stated that he was unconscious because they said he was lying on the boat. They thought that he was dead. All right, I got that. But at some point in time, he regained consciousness. He got off of the boat. And then when it was time for him to find Lucy, yes, people had to give him commands, but I can imagine it was a chaotic scene. Everybody's yelling, everybody's screaming. You're also in the water. I don't know about you, but you've got the sounds of the water, the ocean, the boats, other things. And also the fact that he is in shock. And when the people are yelling at him, look underneath the boat, and his reaction time wasn't instant, that's understandable. That's understandable. But he did go underneath the boat. He did find Lucy. He handed Lucy off to, as we heard the other day, Hamlet Rodriguez. Hamlet then swam her to the boat to be rescued. We all know she succumbed to her injuries. Lucy is the one that we're talking about. She is the one that has passed. What happened to Lucy? Some people say that we don't know. We weren't there, and based on the testimony, I can't confirm this, but somebody stated that she had gotten out of the boat and was ejected, and she hit the channel marker. That's not facts and evidence. I don't know that that is actually true. Nobody has testified to that we just know that she was ejected from the boat. She lost consciousness. Did she hit her head on the boat? Did she hit her head on the channel marker? I don't know. It's pure speculation at this moment. Needless to say, we know that she was unconscious. We know that she was in the water. She was unable to maintain herself. She was underneath the boat. If she was underneath the boat, did that in fact impact the way that she passed? We don't know, but we do know that she was unconscious. She was unable to maintain herself, and she drowned. That is what the medical examiner testified to. Does it matter? No, it doesn't matter. What matters is the facts of this case. Did Mr. Pino willfully, negligently run into the channel marker and then people got injured? He's not being charged with a BUI. They can't prove that. They can allude to the fact that he was drinking, and could that have been a contributory factor to the crash? Yes, but they cannot prove it. There's no evidence in this case that he was drunk or impaired, only the implication. And that's where we're at. That is where we're at. It is a sad tragedy. I did have one person who commented. Oh, let me see if I can find it. All right. Now, you can come at me. I'm reading somebody else's opinion that are really interesting, and they made a really great post. The state appears unable to point to evidence that George Pino was impaired, that he was speeding or otherwise operating recklessly, which is the elements that they need to show for this to go through. They have emphasized the alcohol consumption despite not bringing boating under the influence charges. Criminal convictions must be based on proof of reckless conduct, not emotion, tragedy, or guilt by association. Jurors are not supposed to put their feelings into this case. It's supposed to be based upon the evidence. Not that George Pino had caused this crash, Lucy passed, and therefore he needs to be held accountable. They can't go by that. They need to go by evidence. Did the prosecution show that he was reckless? Did they show that he willfully ran into the sign? Inattentive driving, that is also an element that I believe that they've proved, that he wasn't paying attention, therefore he ran into the sign. We still have one more witness from the defense to come in. They said some person by the name of Muscala or something like that. I don't know who that person is. I do know that their expert was sitting at the defense table earlier this week when the prosecution's expert was on the stand, Mr. Albert, and they were disputing some of the facts that the expert for the prosecution was on the stand. They were disputing the fact of the high tide. Can you see the sign? Can you not see the sign? If you're just joining me, you're not missing anything. Court is on a break right now. I think they are, I'd like to believe that they're just taking a small break. I don't think it's a lunch break just yet. We unfortunately cannot hear because whoever is the operator of the camera today is doing a terrible job. The microphone is terrible. I believe that they're trying to fix it because the camera was all over the place. And also the cameraman showed a juror this morning. That's correct. So if you were watching and the feed like just went away, perhaps they needed to sort of go back and scrub that feed. But those who are streaming live, like I am, have picked it up. I will fix it in post, but I can't fix it now. And also they named the juror. It is no fault of the court. The court is courting, but it is the fault of the person operating the camera. They were not paying attention this morning, and they just doxed a juror, which is terrible. So I will fix it in post. So it will be a little choppy in the beginning, but I'll see what I can do. There's one more defense expert or defense witness today, and then they stated that there's going to be prosecution witnesses coming in for rebuttal, and then that will be the end of the defense and the prosecution's case, perhaps today. Tomorrow they are doing a charging conference and or jury instructions. Basically, you'll find exactly what they're imposing, what the jury is then going to have to consider. And I realize that this is a controversial case. You can come for me. It's fine. I don't care. This is a controversial case, right? A 17-year-old girl's life was lost in this incident, and we cannot forget that fact. We also cannot forget the fact that there were two other parties who were injured. Kati was severely injured, and I'm not sure if it's later on today, but definitely tomorrow or on Friday, because court is not going to be in court on Friday. So there's no George Pino case on Friday. At some point in time, I'm going to make some post reels about the other girls that were on the boat and what their injuries were, etc., just so that everybody can get a complete picture. Because some people are saying, well, why are they just focusing on Lucy in this case? Well, that is what he's being charged with. He's not being charged with injuring the other girls. He's being charged with vessel homicide. He's being charged with manslaughter. And that goes to the context of the person who passed, not the people that were injured. They have put in some smatterings of some of the girls that were injured. They talked about Katia and what her injuries are. If you don't know, Katia was sitting next to Lucy, and she has severe injuries, and she is disabled for the rest of her life. You want to talk about traumatic brain injury, she definitely suffered a brain injury as well. Did she also hit the post? I don't know. I don't know in any of, I haven't looked back at the news reports to see if if she can, or if she has recounted what had happened to her. We do know that she is severely injured. She's in a wheelchair. She's able to walk. She's unable to walk. It has also been reported that Isabella or Mia Rodriguez that she also suffered serious injuries. If you are wondering why you may not be able to chat with me, it was stated at some point that we are supposed to disable our chat if you were live streaming this. It was a directive from the court that during live streaming, the camera pool, like Court TV and or whoever else is on that court feed, Law and Crime, what have you, you're supposed to disable your chat. That's what they had asked. That was a requirement in order for this pool camera to be affixed. And the those of us who are streaming live are not able to have a chat. So that I'm trying to adhere to those rules. All right, so I'm just trying to figure out who was seated where. The internet is saying that Mia and Katia were Lucy, Mia, and Katia were sitting next to each other. Yeah, this is not correct. So when the prosecutor is putting up the who was seated where, they stated that Mia was sitting behind him. So let me know, like later on in the chat, or if you go to my Facebook page or what have you, or X or wherever, if you think that Mia was not, because I'll later on today, I will have that diagram of who was seated where, so that people can know. I believe that Mia was sitting behind him. He was driving. Lucy and Katia were seated next to each other. I'm reading in our AI ChatGPT is getting, I think they're getting it wrong. And it's okay. It's okay. All right, there's movement in the court. I'm not sure how much longer the court is on a break. It is, you know what? It's 1:30 their time. I'm wondering if they are at lunch. So, you know what I can do? I can enable my chat right now. Let's see if I can. 1 second. I can't do it there. Hold on just a second. I'm clicking through some things. 1 minute. All right. I enabled my chat. We can chat now. All right. So if you are able to chat, let me do a test here. Hi, everyone. All right, hold on just a second. Let's see, does it do it? There we go. Hi, everyone. So if you want to chat, you can chat. We can chat now. I believe the court is on a lunch break right now. So let me know what you think in the chat if you can chat. I sent it to Facebook as well as to you. If you want to chat, we can chat. If not, no worries, no worries. I'll just blab. Court right now is on a break. I think they're on their lunch break. So stand up, stretch, go get something to eat. No worries. I already ate something a little this morning, and I'm still drinking my coffee and my water. While we're waiting for them to see, they're on break. Gonna remove this. Let me see if I can find some things that are of interest. Some people were asking about Kati and some of the other girls, so I thought we would share this a little bit. I'm not sure if you can see. Let me see if I can make it a little bit bigger. If you can see up here in the left-hand corner, this is Kati right here in her wheelchair. This is her at graduation, because remember, the girls were going to be seniors in high school when this started. They were 17/18 years old. Some people are like, how can an 18-year-old be in high school? They can. Remember, if your birthday, in some areas, if your birthday falls after August, like a cutoff date in August 20th, 21st, 22nd, or something of that nature, then you sort of get held back, right? You can't go to school that time. So they were celebrating Ceci's birthday. We know it was in September, so it was after the cutoff time. So she started school a little bit later. So the girls were 17, 18 years old. They were going through their senior year of high school. There were 12 girls on the boat, plus the two parents, which made it 14. So here she is at her graduation. She was a soccer player at her school. Here she is at I'm over here, sort of on the left, you see my arrow. She was at an event. Lucy Fernandez's parents advocated greatly to increase the offenses that people would get if they committed a boating accident. It's called Lucy's Law. I'll go into that in just a minute. They had an event, and Kati was invited to this event. It's on YouTube. You can go see it. They were speaking about how the laws needed to be changed for people who had crashes like Mr. Pino. So as you can, here she is in the hospital, very sad. Here she is in her wheelchair. This is a picture of Lucy right here. I'm not sure about some of these other pictures. This is Kati at the event that I was discussing about Lucy's parents who were giving a press conference. This is Lucy, as we know. I'm not sure there's a picture. Another event where Kati's in her wheelchair, and this is her playing soccer. This was a picture of her prior to the accident, obviously. A sort of publicity shot of her at school. She was a star soccer player. And as you can see, she's no longer able to play soccer. If you don't know the Some people sued the Pino family publicly and some sued privately. Lucy's family sued the Pino family privately. They settled for an undisclosed amount. So we do not know how much money the Fernandez family received from the Pino family for the death of Lucy. We know that Kati's family did sue publicly. They received $16 million from Cecilia Pino, and they sued George Pino separately. And that amount is undisclosed. Mia's family sued silently as well, and they received an undisclosed amount of money from the Pino family. When we're talking about George Pino, he is, as Miss Pino was discussing yesterday on the stand, he is a real estate person in the Miami-Dade area, commercial real estate developer or commercial real estate person. So he has earned a lot of money. Some people call him a millionaire. Some people are saying billionaire. Doesn't really matter. Some of the settlements that were awarded to the parents of these girls or these girls themselves, some of the insurance money paid for that. Some of it is not paid by insurance and will have to be then settled from the Pino family. Do they get a lump sum of $16 million? The answer is no. The Pinos don't have just $16 million hanging on their bank account. They probably are being dispersed either yearly or monthly, a settlement amount given to them, a per diem, per month, per year. Because unless you have $16 million, you're just going to go ahead and lay out. That's not the case. What was disclosed? I don't know. Probably won't be able to find it if I wanted to, and I don't think I want to find out. If you want to chat, we can chat. Let me see if there's anybody made a statement in the comments. Oh, here we go. Hi, Marin. Okay. Marion says, I don't think he did it on purpose. It was clearly an accident. It doesn't matter if he makes millions or I'm not or billions. I'm not sure what you're referring there, but accidents happen. You're right. And you go on to state that it's a terrible accident. The Pino is suffering and always will. Yes. There's no winners here, right? There's no winners. Nobody wins in this game. Even the girls who have survived, you heard them on the stand, they're still reliving this accounts. It is terrible. The life of Lucy is terrible. You're never going to get that back, right? It is tremendous. And when Miss Pino was testifying yesterday, it has disrupted all of their lives. As you heard, the Fernandez family, Andy Fernandez and Cecilia Pino, were lifelong friends. They grew up together. They were in elementary school together. Their parents knew each other. She stated that her mother was the secretary at the school. So Andy's parents would know Cecilia's parents. Not that the parents hung out, but that they knew each other growing up and went to school together. And then you can imagine your lives somewhat separate. You go to college, they go to college, and then somehow or other their lives connected back again because they got married. Then they had children who are at the same age. And if you have children, you go through the system with them as well. So you went through the system, they actually went to the same school that their kids went to. And now your kids are going through this. So they grew up together. Now, I don't know what the controversy is stating that the Pino family raised Lucy. I don't know what that controversy is about. I don't quite believe that, but whatever. I do know that their families were very intertwined. and that they had a really great relationship with one another, that they're hanging out socially with their kids. And all of that from this boat tragedy has ended. And in the beginning, I wasn't sure how the Fernandez family felt towards the Pino family after this accident. But when the defense was bringing up something yesterday, the prosecution said, well, then they're going to open up the door to us bringing in, okay. Cecilia Pino was on the stand. They wanted to introduce these photographs that stated what the relationship was between their family and the Fernandez family, which really isn't relevant. What happened in the past doesn't negate the fact that the accident happened. So, is it more prejudiced than probative to bring that information in? Meaning, what are you trying to display to the jury with these pictures of their families from prior to the accident? So I agree with the judge. It shouldn't have come in. The prosecution was arguing, well, hey, if you let this in, then you're opening up the door to allowing the Fernandez family to come on and state how they feel about this case. They can't state how they feel about this case because that would be prejudicial towards about the loss of their daughter. They went into it a little bit, but you can't go deep into it because then it gives sort of like a bad character evidence against Mr. Pino. And you shouldn't be able to paint him in a bad light unless he had some like prior bad acts. Was he a bad driver before? Did he crash here, crash there? If he had prior bad acts, yes, you can introduce that. But their feelings about Mr. Pino shouldn't come into play because then that could prejudice the jury to go on their emotions instead of what the evidence shows. I know it's sad and it's terrible. Again, there are no winners. There's no winners in this situation. There's nobody that's going to win. It's a terrible, terrible tragedy for everybody that's involved. And everybody is going to be suffering tremendous from this accident. There's nobody that's going to be winning from this accident. So if you're just joining me, the court is on their lunch break right now. I thought I would go and talk about a couple of things that some people have brought up, etc. Here are some more pictures of the girls. Let me see if I can bring this up. Here's some pictures of Lucy Fernandez, Luciana. So we've all seen this picture. This is the picture that the prosecution is using. Here's a picture of her family. I'll make it a little bit bigger. Andy, her mother, Melissa, Lucy, and I'm not sure who the brother is. This is obviously a while ago because the kids look a little bit younger. I'm not sure if that's Lucy. It says it was Lucy. Lucy loved the water. I don't know. That's a picture of somebody else here. Boat and the crash. Here's the picture of the girls. There was a video of the girls. Remember how Miss Pino was talking about that she was taking videos of the girls. They were doing like little TikToks and stuff, and they were dancing and singing, and that was what they were doing, obviously, prior to the crash. This is the video of the family talking at this event. They have a foundation for Lucy. It's called the Lucy Fernandez Foundation. This is a really good picture of her right here. Looking out into some ocean, some bay of water with a sailboat behind her. That looks really cute. This one is a really good picture that's floating around the internet of Lucy. This is Lucy's parents, Melissa and Andy, and somebody is receiving a award. Maybe it's a scholarship in Lucy's name. Let's see if we can. So they offered up an award, from the Lucy Fernandez Foundation, to the Our Lady of Lourdes Academy. That is where Katia was a really good soccer player at. There's Katia right here. So here's a picture of Katia before, and this is where she was in the hospital. So let's talk about let's talk about Lucy's Law. Just FYI, court is on a break, so we are just talking through the break. All right, so I'm going to read a little bit about the law that Lucy's family has enacted. So it refers to one of two major pieces of legislation, depending upon whether you're looking at boater safety in the United States. This is about boater safety. So in Florida, Lucy's Law, named in the honor of 17-year-old Lucy Fernandez, who died in the 2022 boating accident, strengthens safety on the water. It ensures boating penalties align with motor vehicle offenses. Remember that these were not in place at the time of the accident that George Pino had crashed into channel marker 15. Harsher penalties for fleeing. Boater operators who leave the scene of an accident involving serious injury or death face elevated felony charges, second-degree and first-degree felonies, respectively. Stricter BUI laws. It sets mandatory minimum prison sentences for boating under the influence, manslaughter charges. But just remember, George Pino is not being charged with a BUI, boating under the influence. Everyone who had interactions with him that day did not feel he was impaired, including the law enforcement officers who dealt with him. Later on that evening, when he went to the Baptist hospital around 11:14 p.m., they did do a blood draw. That is standard operating procedures for them. And they stated that there was no alcohol in his system. Mind you, that was 4 hours and 15 minutes or so after the accident occurred at 6:30 p.m. From 6:30 p.m. to 11. You can do the math. All right, mandatory education. Anyone found of a criminal or non-criminal boating infraction is required to complete an approved boating safety education course. I thought there was more, so let me see if I can find more. So it's called Lucy's Law, the House Bill 289. It passed in the Florida legislature unanimously and was signed into law by Governor DeSantis. So the BUI manslaughter mandatory minimums, the conviction for boating under the influence, manslaughter, now carry a mandatory minimum sentence of 4 years in prison. Reckless boating upgrades, operating a vessel recklessly, resulting in serious bodily injury, has been elevated from a misdemeanor to a third-degree felony. Leaving the scene of an accident, fleeing in a boat involving a serious injury is now a second-degree felony, while leaving the scene of a crash involving a fatality is a first-degree felony. Sorry, someone's getting ice. False reporting. Proving misleading or false statements to law enforcement regarding a boating accident is now a criminal misdemeanor. All right, so we are going to go ahead and I am going to end the stream right now. I have you, but I need to go get something to eat. I need to take a small break. We will be back. So just, if you got your notifications on, please make sure to do the likey, the subscribey things. I'm not sure exactly when I'll be back. Just FYI, there is a Karen Reed hearing going on later on today. I need to go to that. It shouldn't be long. So that will be shortly happening. So I might be a little postponed in coming back to their afternoon session for today's trial, which is okay because then that gives us a lot of Zoom room to Zoom through things. I cannot live stream the Karen Reed hearing that's happening. It's just a Zoom thing, and we know it's only going to be a few minutes. Can't live stream that because SJC rules. So I will have to record that and then I'll post that later on today. So, law lovies, I'm going to go ahead and end things right now and just make sure you have your notifications on when I will pop back up today. So thanks for joining me in the morning session of George Pino. We will be back later on this afternoon. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for watching Legalese 123. If you like what you saw, please like and subscribe for more content.